This is going to be a wild program. We're going to go into areas tonight that we don't go into nearly often enough, and we talk about it. In fact, when I look at the internet as the beast that it is, one of the most common terms I see coming up in alternative media posts and essays and stories is MK Ultra. He's MK Ultra. She's MK Ultra. It's an MK Ultra program. Well, okay, at least people are thinking on the right side of the picket fence. The truth of the matter is, MK Ultra is ancient. It's ancient history. MK Ultra was actually the code name of a U.S. government human research operation experimenting in the behavioral engineering of us. And it was conducted through guess whose? Well, it was the CIA's Scientific Intelligence Division. That CIA project, as some of you may know, was coordinated with the Special Ops Division of the Army's Chemical Corps. Interesting collusion there. The program, now get this is what I'm talking about. When people start throwing MK Ultra around, they don't know really what they're talking about. The program began in the early 1950s. All right? It's not current. It was sanctioned in 53 officially, then reduced in its scope in the 60s, and finally halted, allegedly, officially, in 1973. Well, I assume that they may well have halted the formal MK Ultra project, but they certainly didn't ultra mind control. They simply took it to the next level. Now, that was 41 years ago. Do you think they might have made progress in 41 years on mind control, how to influence people in ways that they would otherwise never dream of acting out, such as mass murder? Serial killers, you name it. The human mind is an electrical device. It's not chemical, it's electrical. We're electrical first. And if you can figure out a way to address, invade, program that electrical machine, which is what computing is all about, you can pretty much take anyone over and make them do whatever you want. And in many cases, most cases, they don't know anything about it. They haven't a clue that they're being used. So when you use the term MK Ultra, understand you're really talking about horse and buggy terminology and technology, as it was. Our guest tonight, I wanted to have this young man on for quite a long time. He is, in my view, a prodigy. He is packed full of information. He has a passion to learn, and he has learned a great deal. He is a mind control expert. His name is Neil Sanders. And this is going to be fun because his book is out now, and there's a little review of it. You can see on his homepage. Click on his name. In the first volume of his book, which has one of the all-time great titles, Your Thoughts Are Not Your Own, amen to that, Neil Sanders exposes the evidence for officially sanctioned mind control programs. And I might get into the non-officially sanctioned mind control programs, of which I suspect there are many out there, such as TV. Sanders has degrees in psychology, film, and media studies, and is a qualified hypnotherapist as well. He spent many years collecting and analyzing declassified documents, scientific papers, court transcripts, confessions from doctors, and testimony from victims and whistleblowers as well, and much more. Do visit his website. It is extraordinary, and he's up very early in the morning or in the middle of the night. Somewhere. It's dark there anyway, in the UK. Are you there, Neil, and can you hear me all right?
I am. Hi, Jeff. How are you doing? You all right?
I'm okay, thank you. Doing well. And glad to have you along. Thank you for... What time is it over there?
It's about 3:15, so it's about 5 hours until I phone in work and lie and tell them that I'm ill.
All right. If they want a backup, they can call me. I'll tell them. That's fine.
You give me a note, will you?
I will. He was sick. He couldn't.
That's very kind of you.
Yeah, it's no problem at all. So, Neil Sanders, what got you into this whole field of the dark arts? Why mind control? What is it about that intrigues you? And when did you start?
Well, I mean, I got interested in mind control. It was a strange occurrence, really. Basically, a friend of mine, his older brother's friend, pressed me to watch this film, The Manchurian Candidate. And I was like, oh, go and watch The Manchurian Candidate. It's got these... I was like, who's in it? It's Frank Sinatra. I was like, oh, brilliant. Oh, yeah, I've got to watch that.
My response exactly.
Yeah, quite. But and it was in black and white as well, so that didn't really interest me terribly. But I did watch it, and because this guy, I very much respected him, and not only did I find the film fascinating, but basically I then started to look at the sort of things that could be done. And obviously, first elements that you start to look at are things like stage hypnotism and hypnosis in general, and that sort of thing, just to see if it works. And I also was interested in psychology, so I was kind of getting a sort of picture about the separation of the mind and how the mind is in all schools of psychological thought. It has sections. There are defense mechanisms like amnesic barriers and the like. There are short circuits. There are ways that you can get people to respond favorably or unfavorably to a situation just by the use of certain words or body language, for example. Like an example is take your sunglasses off if you're speaking to somebody, because the eye contact means that you connect on a more interpersonal level.
Mm-hmm.
Just very basic stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then, obviously, from there, I got interested in Sirhan Sirhan and the stories about Sirhan Sirhan, and obviously the fact that he appeared to be under hypnotic control and firing blanks out of his gun that only held 8 bullets, but miraculously managed to spray 14 bullets, some of them from behind the senator's head, which it's a remarkable.
He's quite a trick shot artist, that guy. Yeah.
Oh yes, he's obviously very, very skilled. And then you look into that and you see that what he was talking about, saying that he believed that he was at a shooting range, and I started to look at it and go, okay, that's plausible. That's actually plausible from a sort of scientific standpoint as well. Not that I'm any great scientist, but it sort of twigged with me. And then from there, basically, what really sort of piqued my interest was the sort of tangential weirdness that was connected to the Manchurian Candidate film. I mean, obviously, it was released shortly before the assassinations of the Kennedys, and then Frank Sinatra, who was friends with the Kennedys, had it banned until the mid-'80s. And then you start to look at the other weird things about it, like, for example, John Frankenheimer, who's the director, was having dinner with Roman Polanski and Robert Kennedy the night before he was assassinated by Sirhan Sirhan, who a lot of people believe to be a Manchurian candidate.
That's pretty weird, Neil. I didn't weird. Know that. That's beyond the probabilities of coincidence.
It gets a bit stranger as well, because some of these could be coincidences, and they obviously are, but for example, Jay Sebring was the person that sort of stapled the toupee to Frank Sinatra's head, and he was also the person that supplied the drugs for the Camelot crowd, the Kennedys, the Peter Lawford.
It was Jay Sebring that did that?
Absolutely.
I know exactly where you're going with this. This is going to blow our listeners' minds. Yeah.
Well, Jay Sebring was one of the victims of the so-called Manson killings. He was killed by Tex Watson, August the 8th, 1969.
He was a very famous hairdresser.
Yeah, he would have been Vidal Sassoon if it hadn't have been for the fact that he, died. He was actually, through Sebring International, he was marketing a range of hair products for men. Yep. This is, again, that comes into a sort of concept of mind control, because up until that point, it was considered a bit namby-pamby for men to be concerned with their appearance in any great way. And then he got very, very sort of macho people, or considered macho people like Steve McQueen and Frank Sinatra to publicly advocate him. And then obviously he became one of the victims of the Manson murders, or the so-called Manson murders.
Mm-hmm.
Bizarrely, Dee Dee Lansbury was living at the Chatsworth Ranch, the Spahn Ranch, for a short time, and traveling around with the Manson family. In her pocket, she had a signed note from Angela Lansbury giving her permission to be away from her parents.
What?
Yeah,
this is Angela Lansbury.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
A permission slip for murder, she wrote, apparently.
This is remarkable.
Well, this is the point,
Yeah, let me just say one thing. What Neil has just laid out here is the substance already that a major book could be written about. We're talking about connections that are just really bizarre. Jay Sebring is a name that most of you probably forgot. I remember the name because it was one of those names. It's a great name. Sebring International, Jay Sebring. I mean, he obviously was going to be a mega star, a mega celebrity. And that was ended. Angela Lansbury. Now, tell us a little bit more about Angela Lansbury and that connection. I'm very interested in that for a number of reasons.
Well, I mean, basically, that was it, really. Her daughter wanted to go and hang out with this bunch of hippies that she met at the Chatsworth, the Spartan Ranch, which was an ex-movie ranch,
sure,
where people like Ronald Reagan. Here's an interesting one as well. The gun that was used to kill Jay Sebring was stolen. Well, it was given to a guy called Randy Starr, who was a stunt man on a film, and it was given to him by a young cowboy, a young actor playing a cowboy who went by the name of Ronald Reagan. So the gun that was used to kill Jay Sebring was actually once in the possession of Ronald Reagan.
How bizarre! How truly bizarre! All right, yeah.
The Angela Lansbury thing was just simply that. But I mean, the other person that was famous that occasionally hung out with the Manson family was Dina Martin, which was Dean Martin's daughter. She was actually the person that introduced Nancy Pittman to the group. Nancy Pittman was also known as Brenda McCann, and she was considered one of the sort of more hardcore. The whole Manson thing's a bit of a misnomer anyway. But she was considered one of the sort of hardcore members of the Klan. So, these sort of brushes with celebrity happened. The strange thing was the other strange connection to MK Ultra was that Roman Polanski, who was obviously the husband of Sharon Tate, who was killed in the Tate murders, obviously, he was in London at the time trying to get together a film called Day of the Dolphins. Now, Day of the Dolphins was based on the experiments of Dr. John Lilly, who was connected to MK Ultra's Subproject 62. And specifically what John Lilly was doing, I mean, John Lilly did a lot of things. He actually mapped the pleasure and pain centers of the brain. He was one of the first people to do this, and therefore proved that by electrical stimulation, you could manipulate people to do things by either making them feel intense pleasure or intense pain. And he sort of expanded this onto dolphins, cats, dogs, and that sort of thing, injecting LSD into the brains, but also basically trying to get them to be a sort of remote control device. Those, we actually still have them. We have dolphins that have got like nuclear warheads attached to them, and occasionally they sort of go astray, and so they're sort of floating around like some sort of terrifying but awful Bond villain. And basically, they were doing that, and this was one of the things that they were doing in MK Ultra. Roman Polanski was actually trying to get a film about that scenario going, and he was in London at the time that his wife was killed trying to get this film, Day of the Dolphin, going. But in his film, the dolphins could actually talk, and they were going to be the heroes of the piece. But unfortunately, that vision will never see the light of day.
No, you mentioned another name that's suitable for a program. I'd love to do more on Dr. John Lilly. What a strange dude he was.
Absolutely.
I've talked on this program about the so-called Lilly wave before. Now, the Lilly wave is a certain electromagnetic frequency. And I don't know if you know, let me tell this little quick story, Neil. You may find it of interest. Dr. Pat Flanagan went over to visit a friend of his in his laboratory, which was actually his garage in his home. He lived in a suburban neighborhood, and down every block, of course, were electrical wires and telephone poles and so forth, and transformers and all that. Well, Pat Flanagan went into the garage, and the guy he knew was in there working on a bench, and there was an oscilloscope there. On the oscilloscope was a waveform, which is well known. It's the Lilly wave. People in that line of work know the Lilly wave by sight pretty well. And he went up to his friend. He said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm just doing this and that." And he said, "What are you doing with the Lilly wave on there?" And his friend looked up at Pat Flanagan and said, "You're not going to believe this." He said, "Guess where it's coming from?" And Pat said, I don't know. He said, "It's coming from there." And he pointed to the wall plug. It was coming from the electric grid, and it didn't get there on its own.